Hello, my name is Leo, and for my blog post, I will be talking about crucial conversations. And I got that from this book, Crucial Conversations Tools for Talking When Stakes Are High, by Carrie Patterson, Joseph Graney, and Ron McMillan. And I would like to apply this crucial conversations idea to computer mediated communication, and more specifically, to texts and texting. So, crucial conversations are when opinions vary, stakes are high, and emotions are running strong. And I chose crucial conversations over text because I hope to help some people in the future handle a difficult conversation, or at least have a tool for doing so. And I will be using an example of two roommates who are very different in their styles. One is more neat and one is more disorganized. The neat one stays or gets up early, and the disorganized one stays up late and does homework more later. And these two people don't talk about it. And so a crucial conversation needs to happen between these two people in order for them to be happier. Okay, so the book has a couple steps for seeing crucial conversations and dealing with crucial conversations. And the first step is to start with the heart, and that just means look at yourself, focus on what you really want for yourself, for others, and for the relationship. Ask yourself, how would I behave if this were what I really wanted? And also avoid the sucker's choices, which are the either or choices. Like, you have to do this, you have to do that, and try to go for the and. Those are the good ones. Number 2 is learn to look, which is all about trying to see and trying to realize when a crucial conversation is happening. And often what you'll see first is leakage, or a change in someone's behavior. Leaking out is either they're nervous because emotions are high, or they're acting a little bit differently because they don't feel safe. And what you really want to look for is people going towards silence or violence, because that's when you can kind of tell the space you are in is not safe. And remember to watch out for yourself as well. You can vary towards violence or silence very easily, and this can lead to a problem. If you want to know whether you go towards silence or violence, below I have a link to a stress test, a style inventory test, and it'll just tell you how you handle some situations, whether you vary towards being a little more silent and not interacting, or you vary towards aggression and violence. In my research, I found an awesome organization called Community United Against Violence, and they put out a poster that has a pendulum, and on either side of the pendulum is minimization and retaliation. And this should sound familiar because that minimization is basically silence and retaliation is basically violence. But what they have a middle option that is the middle path, and it's being honest with each other in a non-aggressive way. Now, this is a great option, and it is really good, but it's also not always the best option. You have to remember that context is everything, and sometimes for self-defense, you really don't want to be in the middle path. Sometimes you do want to stay silent, and we just want to be aware of that. So the third skill for when you're in a crucial conversation is make it safe. And we kind of got with that. When someone goes towards violence or silence, this is a great way to steer them back into a crucial conversation and having a successful crucial conversation. And so the two questions they have are, do others believe you care about their goals? So is there mutual purpose? And do others believe that you respect them? So is there mutual respect? One way that you can garner this is by using contrasting, and that's by affirming what you do not mean and confirming what you actually are concerned about. So, for example, with the roommates, you could say, one could say, I don't hate you as a roommate. I don't hate you as a person. You're actually really cool. I really like you. I just have a problem because I need to sleep. And so your schedule doesn't work very well. Can we talk through this? So that'd be a great way of contrasting. Next is mastering your stories. And that's if you're really stuck in those high emotion situations. You should really focus on getting in touch with your feelings and realizing what you're feeling and trying to steer away from those and going back to your facts. And with this, there's an acronym that's STATE. So it goes S, share your facts, tell your story, ask for others' stories, talk tentatively, which just means tell your story as not a fact, but as a story, and encourage others. Okay, so the last step is to explore others' paths. And that was kind of briefly mentioned in some of the other steps, but this is really when you want to actively listen and work to compare your two views instead of contesting them. Now you're probably wondering why do all of this? It seems more complicated. It seems a lot easier just to stay silent. Well, one book that I found called Difficult Conversations by Stone et al. They found that people who have learned new approaches to challenging conversations, such as this Crucial Conversations Guide, that actually by confronting the issue in a non-aggressive way, they become less anxious and have a heightened sense of freedom of action in other tough situations. So if you want to be more free and less anxious, then you should listen to me, probably. Now, I want to apply the Crucial Conversations idea to computer-mediated communication. And I want to do this because, well, Nick told me I had to, and also because the channel that you send one's messages is very important, and I think it's a really interesting future study. So if you apply Crucial Conversations to computer-mediated communication, and particularly I was thinking about texting, most of the aspects are the same. You can still be honest and start by examining yourself, but it will be harder to realize maybe when a crucial conversation is occurring. But on the other hand, if you can look and find that one is occurring, you will have more ability to edit your messages with the affordances of computer-mediated communication, and so it may be easier to craft a response. Emotions are less of an issue, I would argue, because there are no nonverbals, or at least a lot fewer, maybe if you count emojis, in texting. And lastly, it may be harder to keep the space safe because you have less control in some sense over the audience of the message. You have more control over the editability of your message, but the audience can be a lot larger than you first expected, and because of the recordability, it may also reach people that you did not intend and be harder to deal with later. I also think it'd be really interesting to look at crucial conversations over computer-mediated communication because of the hyperpersonal perspective, which says that people often self-disclose more over the internet. And I think this would be interesting because crucial conversations then may be easier to have over the internet because people will be disclosing more, perhaps, than if they were in the same face-to-face conversation. Going along with this, I read an article by Adam Joinson, which is called Self-Disclosure in Computer-Mediated Communication, the Role of Self-Awareness and Visual Anonymity. And in this article, Joinson finds that people are much more likely to spontaneously self-disclose in computer-mediated communication than in face-to-face, which is goes along with the hyperpersonal perspective. But they also found, especially if the computer-mediated communication is between visually anonymous participants, which is exactly what texting would be, and so I think this is a great area of future study. The last thing I would add is that I know there's a culturally kept idea that there are some conversations that you shouldn't have over text. That's an idea. You have them face to face. So I also wonder how that might change the data and how that might make people not have as many crucial conversations in another way. So I think you could set up a conflicting hypothesis there with either there's more crucial conversations and it's easier because people self-disclose more, or there are less conversations because there are cultural constructions that allow people to think that some conversations should just not be over text. All right, that's it. Thanks for watching, and subscribe below. Just kidding, I never use YouTube. But I wanted to say, if you remember nothing else, then remember to look for crucial conversations, and when you are in them, to do your best to keep them safe. If you remember nothing else, just those two things, and I hope that helps you sometime in the future. Bye.